Before Metta World Peace, before the Malice and the Palace, before the rings, redemption arcs, name changes, and meditation, there was Ron Artest, raw, relentless, and raised in the fire of Queensbridge. This is the story of one of the NBA's most complex and compelling figures, told through the sharp chrome lens of a 1990-2000 Bowman's Best rookie card. A card that shows a young Artest in a Chicago Bulls jersey, number 15, driving to the rim with a defender clinging to him like it was the last strand of peace before the storm. It's a moment frozen just before the chaos, before the headlines, before the league knew exactly what kind of force had entered its ranks. But to understand the man on that card, you've got to go way back, before the pros, before St. John's, before the draft day suits and the bright lights of the NBA. You've got to go to Queensbridge. Queensbridge is the largest public housing development in North America, a stacked hive of brick and grit and survival, sitting in the shadow of Manhattan, but with a rhythm all its own. In the late 80s and early 1990s, it was a crucible for New York's hip-hop. Nas, Mobb Deep, Marley Marl. But it was a breeding ground for toughness. You don't just grow up in Queensbridge, you get tested by it. Ron Artest was born November 13th, 1979. By the time he was learning how to dribble, the bridge was thick with crime, tension, and resilience. Kids didn't just play ball for fun. They played for peace of mind. The courts were sacred, and Ron gravitated to them like they were altars. There was no plan B. For Artest, basketball wasn't a hobby. It was a ticket. His upbringing shaped everything about his game. His defensive mindset, his fearlessness, his rage. There's a now famous story that he once watched a man get killed during a game that he was playing in. Two players got into an argument over a foul. One left, came back with a table leg, and ended a life right there on the court. Ron kept playing. It's a horrifying image, but it tells you something about Artest's wiring. His world was chaos. He didn't just learn to survive it, he adapted to it. It became a part of him. And that duality, the drive and the damage, would follow him his entire career. In high school, Artest became a New York City legend. He played at LaSalle Academy, a Catholic school in Manhattan, and starred in the city's elite AAU circuit for the Riverside Hawks. That circuit was no joke. He matched up with future NBA talent every weekend, guys like Elton Brand and Lamar Odom, and he held his own. His game wasn't flashy, but it was unmistakable. He was strong as hell. A 6'6" forward who moved like a linebacker, had quick feet, and took defense personally. He could score, sure, but that's not what stood out. It was the way he hunted the ball, the way he got under players' skin. He wasn't trying to impress you. He was trying to take your soul. He took that fire with him to St. John's University. Artest played 2 seasons at St. John's, and he was tailor-made for the Big East. This wasn't the modern college game with spacing and finesse. This was hard-nosed, grown man basketball, and Ron brought the edge. In 1998-99, he led the Red Storm to the Elite Eight and averaged nearly 14 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. He made the All-Big East first team, but his stats weren't what defined him. It was his energy, the way he defended every inch of the court. He bodied guards, boxed out centers, dove for loose balls like they were $1 million. And more than anything else, he wanted it. You could see it in his eyes, the internal combustion engine always humming just under the surface. By the spring of 1999, the NBA could not ignore him. He declared for the draft as a sophomore. The league wasn't quite ready for who was coming. June 30th, 1999. It was one of the most loaded drafts in recent memory. Elton Brand, Steve Francis, Baron Davis, Lamar Odom, Wally Szczerbiak. And down at pick number 16, the Chicago Bulls selected Ron Artest out of St. John's University. It was a calculated risk. The Bulls were in shambles, just 1 year removed from the end of their dynasty. Jordan gone, Pippen traded, Phil retired. The United Center was quiet. The banner still hung, but the energy was gone. They were rebuilding from nothing. And in came Artest, ready to bite someone's head off for a defensive stop. From day one, he brought intensity. His rookie year, he averaged 12 points, nearly 4 rebounds, and 2 steals per game. He made the all-rookie second team. He earned minutes the hard way, by grinding, pressing, forcing coaches to notice. He was unpolished, yes, but undeniably impactful. He also showed flashes of unpredictability, technical fouls, confrontations, rumors of mood swings, and conflicts in the locker room. But Chicago needed fire. They needed someone willing to compete, like championship banners still mattered. And Artest, he wasn't just competing. He was proving something. That's what makes the 1999-2000 Bowman's Best number 116 rookie card so fascinating. It captures Artest in this exact phase, caught between potential and explosion. The card features him in a Bulls jersey, mid-drive against a defender, eyes locked upward as he prepares to finish through contact. It's glossy, high color, layered in the signature chrome sheen that Bowman's Best was known for. The background is a stylized grid of blue and red, suggesting hardwood, but more abstract, like the arena is melting away and all that exists is Artest in that moment. His name appears in bold block letters, Ron Artest, and the Chicago Bulls logo sits subtly near the corner. Top right, the Bowman's Best rookie card emblem gleams like a badge. But it's not a flashy card. It's serious, gritty, intense, just like him. This isn't your highlight reel, windmill dunk kind of rookie card. This is sweat and contact and control. It's a card for people who remember the post-Jordan years, who saw the Bulls not as glamorous, but as under construction, and who understood that Ron Artest was never a sideshow. He was the show, just not in the ways that people always expected. The card doesn't lie. It tells you exactly who he is before the headlines caught up. But even in those early Bulls years, the signs were there. Artest was emotional, incredibly self-aware one moment and volatile the next. He once applied for a job at Circuit City during the season just to get employee discounts on electronics. Some saw it as immaturity, others saw it as instability. But what's clear, in hindsight, is that Ron Artest was dealing with things far deeper than basketball. He later opened up about growing up around violence, trauma, and untreated mental health issues. He was carrying more than just expectations. In that rookie season, captured forever on card number 116, he was just beginning to let the NBA see both sides of him. The player who would win Defensive Player of the Year, the man who would later bring the entire league to a standstill in the middle of a brawl. But that was still to come. For now, in that 1999 snapshot, Ron Artest was still all promise and power, a 20-year-old kid from Queensbridge in a Bulls uniform, breaking down defenders and building his own identity. And on glossy cardstock, Bowman's Best locked it in for good. Ron Artest wasn't built for mediocrity. Not on the court, not in life, not in the static air of a rebuilding locker room where players were more concerned with contracts than competition. And that's what made his time in Chicago so electric and so short-lived. In his first 2 seasons with the Bulls, Artest became the only thing that you could count on a team that had lost everything else. The Bulls had gone from 62 wins to 13 in just 1 year. Phil Jackson was gone. Michael Jordan vanished. The triangle offense had been disassembled like scaffolding after a cathedral collapsed. But on the defensive end, Artest gave them a heartbeat, a rhythm. He smothered ball handlers. He picked pockets. He fought on every screen like it was personal. And even though the Bulls were stuck in the basement of the Eastern Conference, Ron Artest was doing what he always did, climbing through the fire. He wasn't a scorer, not really, not yet, but he averaged 11.9 points per game as a rookie, then 11.9 again the next season, along with over 2 steals per game. He was a nuisance, a pest, a player you hated playing against, but secretly you wished was on your team. The NBA started noticing. Coaches began circling his name on scouting reports. He wasn't just intense, he was affecting games. And yet, Chicago wasn't ready to build around him. In February 2002, the Bulls made a move, a big one. On February 19, 2002, Ron Artest was a part of a blockbuster deal that sent him, Brad Miller, Ron Mercer, and Kevin Ollie to the Indiana Pacers. In return, the Bulls received Jalen Rose, Travis Best, Norman Richardson, and a second-round pick. It didn't make massive headlines at the time, but looking back, it was one of the most pivotal moves of the decade, because in Indiana, Ron Artest would transform into a superstar, into a problem, into a player who would carry a franchise and then nearly destroy it. The Pacers were different. They weren't rebuilding. They were in the thick of the Eastern Conference fight. Reggie Miller was still the face of the franchise. Jermaine O'Neal was coming into his prime. The team was physical, disciplined, and tough. In other words, they were built for a guy like Artest. Right away, Artest fit. His first full season with the Pacers was 2002-2003. He averaged 15.5 points, 5.2 rebounds, and 2.3 steals. He was stronger, quicker, and more in control. You could see the work he'd been putting in. The chaos was still there, but it was focused, weaponized. And in 2003-2004, everything clicked. He became a full-fledged two-way threat. He was now putting up over 18 points per game, defending the other team's best player every night, and locking in with a fury that bordered on maniacal. Coaches around the league began naming him in the same breath as Bruce Bowen and Ben Wallace. Then came the recognition. Ron Artest was named the 2003-2004 Defensive Player of the Year, the first perimeter player to win it since Gary Payton nearly a decade earlier. He also made the All-Star team for the first and only time in his career. Indiana won 61 games, finished first in the East, and looked like a legitimate title threat. It was validation, not just for Ron, but for that 1999 Bowman's Best Rookie card. For everyone who believed the guy was just more than attitude. For everyone who saw the hunger behind the hard fouls. But then, November 19th, 2004 happened. You can't talk about Ron Artest's career without talking about Detroit. It was supposed to be a heavyweight regular season game, Pacers versus Pistons, two of the best teams in the East. Physical, tense, the kind of basketball that Ron Artest was made for. With less than a minute left, and the Pacers up big, things unraveled. Artest fouled Ben Wallace hard on a layup. Wallace shoved him. A scuffle broke out. Players were jawing, pushing, and trying to hold each other back. Artest bizarrely removed himself from the melee and laid down on the scorer's table, like he was trying to meditate in the middle of a street fight. And that's when it escalated. A fan threw a cup of beer, hit Artest square in the chest, and then Ron snapped. He charged into the stands, fists flying, chaos erupting. Teammates followed. Security was overrun. Players were swinging at fans. Fans were throwing chairs, food, and anything they could find. It was one of the darkest nights in NBA history, a total breakdown of boundaries between the court and the crowd. A line crossed so violently, it shook the entire league. Artest was suspended for the rest of the season, a staggering 73 games, plus the playoffs, the longest non-drug-related suspension in league history. Steven Jackson got 30 games, Jermaine O'Neal got 25. The Pacers' title hopes were dead. The season ended not in triumph, but in trauma. The NBA didn't know what to do with Ron Artest. He was radioactive, a villain. Every talking head on TV was calling for lifetime bans, criminal charges, psychological evaluations. The media painted him as unhinged, and in some ways, he was. But what was always missing from the coverage was context. Artest had been seeking help. He talked openly, even before the brawl, about needing therapy, about feeling overwhelmed. He wasn't hiding from his mental health issues. He just didn't know how to manage them. The suspension sent him spiraling. He distanced himself from the Pacers. He asked for time off to record a rap album. He criticized teammates. He alienated the franchise. And finally, in January 2006, Indiana traded him to Sacramento for Peja Stojakovic. It felt like exile. A former All-Star, Defensive Player of the Year, just gone. But he wasn't done. In Sacramento, Artest started to put the pieces back together. He averaged over 16 points and led the team to the playoffs. He still had flashes of volatility, sure, but he was growing. He was listening more, opening up more. He played in Sacramento until 2008, then moved to Houston, where he joined a defensive-minded Rockets team and played some of his most mature basketball. He helped lead Houston to a second-round playoff appearance, pushing the Lakers to 7 games, even without Yao Ming. But the real twist in the story came the following summer, because in 2009, Ron Artest signed with the Los Angeles Lakers, and in doing so, he rewrote everything. Let's pause here, because now we're moving from Artest the Destroyer to Artest the Redeemer. Back in 1999, that Bowman's Best Rookie card didn't come with any of this baggage. It was pure, chrome and cardboard, and potential. No malice, no media storm, no suspensions. Just a kid in a Bulls uniform, tough, hungry, and climbing. Collectors look at that card today and see 2 stories. 1, the alternate timeline. What if Artest had stayed in Chicago? What if he'd had the right support system and the right coach and the right mentors? And 2, the redemption arc. How a man, once banned from basketball, became a champion, a mental health advocate, and a walking contradiction who somehow found peace through chaos. That's what makes the card so special. That's not a picture of a finished product. It's a snapshot of the before everything broke, before everything changed, and yet he made it through. By the time Ron Artest signed with Los Angeles in the summer of 2009, most people thought his best years were behind him. He was 29 years old, had been on 4 different teams, carried more baggage than accolades, and was known more for the brawl in Detroit than his Defensive Player of the Year award. But this next chapter, This is where everything changed. This is where Ron found peace in the unlikeliest of places. When Artest joined the Lakers, the team was fresh off a finals win. Kobe Bryant was still in his prime. Pau Gasol was at his peak. Phil Jackson had returned for one more run at history. Trevor Ariza, the versatile defender who helped them beat Orlando in the 2009 finals, had left in free agency, and the Lakers needed someone with grit. Enter Artest. It was risky. Everyone knew it. Artest was volatile. He had been suspended, fined, and ejected more times than anyone could count. But Kobe believed in him. Phil believed in him. And most importantly, Artest believed in Artest, even when nobody else did. In his first season with the Lakers, he reinvented himself. He didn't try to be a star. He didn't force offense. He accepted his role. Perimeter stopper, floor spacer, enforcer when needed. He averaged 11 points a game, but his value wasn't in the numbers. It was in trust. He guarded the other team's best scorer every night. LeBron, Durant, Paul Pierce, Brandon Roy. He made them earn everything. And slowly, he started to change. Off the court, he talked about therapy, about anxiety, about how he'd finally start to understand his emotions. He gave awkward, heartfelt interviews. He wore his vulnerability like body armor. He was no longer just surviving. He was evolving. And then came the moment that changed everything. Game 7, 2010 NBA Finals. Lakers vs. Celtics. The rematch. It was June 17, 2010. Staples Center was rocking. The Celtics had taken the 2008 title from the Lakers. Now, the Lakers had a chance to take it back. It was a grind of a series. Ugly, physical, everything Artest was built for. Game 7 was brutal. Neither team shot well. Every possession felt like a war. The Lakers clawed back from a 13-point deficit in the third quarter, and with just over a minute to go, they were clinging to a narrow lead. That's when Ron Artest hit the biggest shot of his life. Kobe was double-teamed, kicked it out. Artest, standing beyond the arc, caught the ball in rhythm, and without hesitation, he let it fly. A three-pointer with 1 minute and 1 second left. Staples Center exploded. The Lakers held on to win 83-79. They were champions, again. In the post-game press conference, with champagne still wetting his jersey, Ron Artest leaned into the mic and said something that stunned the sports world. First of all, I want to thank my psychiatrist. Everyone laughed, but he wasn't joking. He meant it. He was serious. He was finally opening up about the work he had done to get there, about the years of pain, confusion, and healing. He'd started therapy. He'd been on medication. He'd taken responsibility for his growth. He'd reached out. And in the biggest moment of his career, he gave his credit not to his coach, not to a teammate, but to his mental health journey. That moment made headlines around the world. It was funny, sure, but it was also powerful. It cracked open a long-ignored conversation in sports, that mental health matters, that toughness isn't just playing through pain, it's seeking help when you need it. That's what made that finals moment more than just a clutch shot. It was a breakthrough. After the championship, Ron Artest made one of the most surreal decisions of his career. He changed his name. In September 2011, he legally became Metta World Peace. The name was part philosophy, part spectacle. Metta is a Buddhist term meaning loving kindness or compassion. He chose it to inspire positivity, especially for the youth. World Peace was, well, world peace. It sounded like a headline from The Onion, but it was real. On jerseys, in interviews, in NBA stat sheets. The man who once punched a fan in the stands now had world peace stitched across his back. It was bizarre, but it made sense, because Artest had always been a paradox. He could be deeply violent and deeply thoughtful. He could be chaotic and calm. He could lock down LeBron James for 48 minutes, then go on Jimmy Kimmel Live and hand out cookies. He wasn't just a player anymore. He was a symbol of change, of growth, of what it meant to fall hard and get back up again. That's what gives that 1999 Bowman's Best number 116 rookie card so much more depth in hindsight. When that card was printed, nobody could have predicted his arc. Nobody thought that kid in a white Bulls jersey, so focused, so fierce, would one day become a world champion, a peace advocate, a walking headline. The card itself, now over 2 decades old, captures the moment before the transformation. It's the origin story. The chrome is still brilliant. The action shot, Artest driving hard in traffic, is still full of kinetic tension. The font, the color scheme, the Bowman's Best logo in the top corner. It all feels like a time capsule from the turn of the millennium. But more than that, it feels like a prelude. To look at that card today is to see a player who hadn't yet been tested, who hadn't yet fallen, and who hadn't yet risen again. Collectors love the card not because it's rare, but because it's honest. It reflects a truth about Artest that only time could reveal. That greatness isn't always graceful. That redemption takes longer than a rookie contract. And that sometimes your most valuable card isn't about the stats. It's about the story. Metta stayed with the Lakers for several more seasons. He bounced around near the end, brief stints in China and Italy, and a return to the Lakers for a brief farewell. But the defining chapters were already written. He finished his career with 13,000 plus points, over 4,000 rebounds, and a permanent place in NBA history. Not for his stats, but for everything else. He later said in interviews that the Malice in the Palace haunted him, how he thought about it every day. But he also said he forgave himself, that he found peace, that he learned to meditate, that he raised a family, that he used basketball not as an escape, but as a tool to build a better version of himself. He started a company that focused on mental health awareness. He gave talks. He did advocacy work. He remained eccentric, unpredictable, but honest. And slowly, the narrative shifted. Ron Artest wasn't just a guy who went into the stands. He was the guy who came out better for it. Think about that when you look at his Bowman's Best rookie card. It's not flashy. It's not centered on a dunk or a smile. It's a grind, a battle. Artest fighting through a defender, eyes locked upward, and not knowing yet what the next 15 years would look like. The beauty of cards like this is that they let us pause time. They give us access to a version of a player untouched by the world that's about to hit him. And for Ron Artest, that version was electric, dangerous, full of promise, a weapon with no handle. Bowman's Best didn't gloss him up. It didn't Photoshop a grin or a fake celebration. It gave us what we'd come to expect from him. Force, tension, reality. And that's why it still matters. By the time Ron Artest walked away from the NBA, he'd become more than a defender, more than a brawler, more than a headline. He'd become a case study in human contradiction, a living, breathing reminder that people can be broken and brilliant at the same time. His name changes told the story in stages. Ron Artest, the prodigy from Queensbridge, grit, defense, pure aggression. Metta World Peace, the redemption arc, therapy, championships, vulnerability. Metta Sandiford Artest, the legacy version, father, mentor, advocate. And yet, the card never changed. That Bowman's Best card number 116 still sits there, frozen in 1999, chrome and fearless, capturing a 20-year-old Artest in his first Bulls uniform, driving into the paint with something to prove. It's one of the few things in his life that hasn't morphed, fractured, or evolved. And all of that makes it more powerful. Let's be honest. Artest's career will never be remembered like Kobe's or LeBron's or Tim Duncan's. He didn't make a dozen All-Star games. He didn't lead the league in scoring. He didn't end up on every kid's bedroom poster. But that's not the only way to leave a mark. Ron Artest made his name on impact, physical, emotional, cultural. He influenced how teams thought about perimeter defense. He made the league rethink mental health policy. He stood in front of the world after a title-clinching Game 7 and thanked his therapist. He messed up. He made things right. He fought the league. He protected his teammates. He chased peace through chaos. And he battled his own mind and talked about it out loud. How many players can you say that about? His career was filled with contradictions. He was the best defender in the league and also the most suspended. He was clutch in the finals and also unraveled mid-season in multiple cities. He brought violence to a crowd and later brought mental health awareness to high schools. You can't summarize Ron Artest in a stat line. You need a story. You need layers. You need to know how pain turns into power and how chaos becomes clarity. And that's what this card represents. Most rookie cards are about arrival. This one is about trajectory. When Bowman's Best released the 1999-2000 set, the hobby world was on a transitional moment. Chrome was in. Inserts were evolving. The game was shifting towards stars like Iverson, Vince Carter, and Garnett. Buried in that set, card number 116 was a different kind of prospect, a throwback defender. A kid from Queensbridge who played like every possession was a personal war. A player whose life will become one of the most unexpected redemption stories the NBA has ever seen. Look at that card now. Really look at it. You'll see a baby-faced Artest, not yet hardened by league politics or public scrutiny. A Bulls jersey worn during the last glamorous years in franchise history. A motion blur of intent. The kind of drive that says, get out of my way, more than look at me. It's not a popular card. It's not expensive. It's not even the most visually striking, but it's honest. And in the world of sports cards, where polish and pageantry are the norm, that honesty hits different. One of the quiet truths of collecting is this. Cards lie dormant until we fill them with story. You can hold a card for years, decades even, and only later realize what it really captured. When that Ron Artest card came out, nobody thought they were holding a future Defensive Player of the Year, a finals hero, or man who would redefine athlete vulnerability. They just saw a tough rookie on a bad team. But now, you see everything. We see the beginnings of rage, the roots of resilience, the raw version of a man who would go on to live 5 different basketball lives in one career. And that's what makes this card, Bowman's Best number 116, so powerful. It's not flashy, it's foundational. If you collect cards, you know the feeling. You stumble across one in a box, a binder, or a bulk lot. Maybe it's bent. Maybe the corners are soft. Maybe it was tossed aside when everyone was chasing stars. But then you stop. You flip it over. You remember the name. You remember the noise, the brawls, the banners, the press conferences, the reinventions. That's this card. The 1999-2000 Bowman's Best Ron Artest rookie isn't about monetary value. It's about the human value of watching someone wrestle with themselves in public, fail spectacularly, and then rise through it with all the scars visible. It's about what it means to be misunderstood and what it takes to rewrite your own narrative. And it's a reminder that the cardboard we collect is more than shiny paper. It's evidence of who we were, of who we thought someone was, and of how the stories evolve long after the last whistle blows. So if you've got that card number 116, don't bury it behind the Jordans or LeBrons. Display it. Respect it. Because that chrome rectangle carries one of the most turbulent, beautiful, unforgettable journeys in NBA history. And it all started with a kid from Queensbridge, driving to the hoop with fury in his eyes. This has been Cardboard Credentials. Be sure to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to leave a comment of whose story you'd like to hear next.